Good evening. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We're in the Brecksville Broadview Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Public participation is governed by Board Bylaw 0169.1, public participation at board meetings. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Moving on to item 1B, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item 1C, roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick, Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski, Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, Lisa and Tish are unable to join us this evening, so it'll just be the three of us, which is still a quorum. Moving on to item 2A, announcements. I have none other than stay cool. Item 2B, a notice of consent agenda. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, moving on to item 3, board area of responsibilities, legislative OSBA liaison, Ellen.
So there is actually a lot going on with respect to legislation. However, the biennial state budget is due to be finalized Monday, June 30th. So we'll know a lot more at our July meeting. Unfortunately, the way things appear to be shaking out doesn't appear real promising for public education funding, but who knows, maybe in the next 5 days, something really great will happen. And this isn't not necessarily legislation related, although it is because it's part of the state budget. The state budget has allocated a huge portion of money in the last biennial budget, and then the one that is due to be finalized by Monday, June 30th for public or for private school vouchers. And yesterday, a trial court judge in Franklin County deemed that Ohio's voucher program is unconstitutional. That decision is going to get appealed probably twice to the Franklin County Court of Appeals and then to the Ohio Supreme Court. But just wanted to mention it because our district joined that lawsuit earlier this year. And it even though it's a court decision, it's basically saying that legislation that our state legislature has passed is not constitutional. So there's going to be a lot of updates, I think, at our July meeting.
Okay, moving on to Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, Ava.
We had basically just closing up various committee initiatives that were covered. Dave Menges was running for the president of the state and national level of Joint Career Center's position and came in second, which was kind of cool for him. And the biggest thing that I think that they've been working on is the outdoor telecommunications tower technician program, which is a major initiative for any entity around us. And that we're going to have a special meeting beginning of July, and that's it.
Thank you. Next is curriculum. Tish is out, so we'll pause on that and circle back to that next month. Finance, myself and Tish, there's no updates on finance right now. Transportation, myself, all is quiet. We're in summer mode. Board policy, Lisa and Ellen. Lisa's not here, so Ellen.
I think it's like the first agenda in a while that we haven't had a policy update.
Okay. BBH Schools Foundation, Tish, she's not here. Nobody has an update on that, correct? Okay, we'll circle back next month on that topic. Safety, Ava,
Nothing to report.
sustainability.
Nothing to report. We're sustaining and maintaining.
All right. PSO, that's Lisa. We'll circle next week or next month back to that. Co-curricular, extracurricular, also Tish and Lisa. So we'll pause that. Permanent improvement, myself and Ellen.
Well, do you want to mention the meeting on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, there was a campus master plan meeting of the committee that was originally formed for feedback. And so, that meeting went well. I mean, I'll defer to Jeff on some of that, but we had gotten some feedback, and so it was helpful. The plans were positively received. The big question is, what are our next steps? And so, we are still all of the phases that were created are still, well, other than phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 was removing Hilton, and phase 2 is putting the extra drive in where Hilton was. So that's in progress. The rest of the phases are more visionary. And so there's not funding or a plan for funding for that right now. And so some of this is trying to engage the community and see what their thoughts are, and then figure out what next steps are.
Yeah, next steps for us, obviously, is to get the Hilton driveway out for bid, so we can get that project underway. There's still a couple of steps before we get there, and a utility pole that needs moved. Then outside of that, we're going to continue to refine the other phases 3, 4, 5, and 6, and drill down a little bit deeper. So the goal would be at the State of the Schools in October to have, here is the campus master plan, here are the costs associated with them, and at that point begin kind of getting feedback from the community as to what type of appetite, if any, they would have, and maybe entertaining a possible bond at that point. As I've said a couple of times, and Craig has echoed it, it's a little hard for us to put the cart before the horse right now while we're waiting for the state budget to drop. So once the state budget drops, I think that helps clarify what the next 3 to 5 years are going to look like operationally and operational funds, because that's our number one priority, is make sure we continue offering the great product we do in the classroom. Once that has some clarity, then we can begin talking about possible bond or initiatives to be able to make some of that campus master plan come to fruition. Again, the campus master plan was created to alleviate traffic concerns on Mill Road, is where it started. And we're just planning for the future. So if and when we have the funds available and we want to make upgrades to our campus, the plan is ready to go. The feedback at the meeting was very positive, but I will be first to say the room is full of people who are very supportive of our school district and have been involved at many different levels. And their expertise and knowledge and history is very beneficial, and making sure that we pay attention to certain things along the way. But we have a lot of work to do yet with the greater community to determine what type of appetite there is, and when and if we may go on the ballot at some time in the future to make that plan come to life. So,
and then I just want to, I think there's a little bit of a date clarification. I think at the last meeting, there was, we were kind of optimistic about the date that this new drive would be completed. It sounds like it's going to be later than what was originally.
Yeah, me being super optimistic, I've said all along that I would like it to be done before it snow flies, which seems like it's a long way away with the weather we're having. But with a few delays with this utility pole being this question of when we're going to be able to get it removed, the bid process, where contractors are with their book of business, we're a little behind in that, and we don't want to rush it. We want to have a great product. So really, maybe it's going to end up being spring of 26. So to get the best pricing and the best contractors to do the work. So hopefully by this time next year, it'll be done and complete, or be in use.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 4, superintendent's communications, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
All right, just a couple quick things that I try to bring up. I just want to talk a little bit and thank the employees of the district for wrapping up a very successful 24-25 school year. It's funny how quickly it comes to an end. We're so busy in May, and then the holiday hits, and next thing you know, this place starts to turn into a ghost town. It's pretty quiet when we don't have students around, and then it's really quiet when we don't have students or teachers around. So, but there's a lot of work being done. Brian Koss and his team are actively working on the roof at the middle school. You've probably seen some new asphalt that went in today. We've also had a small hiccup when they were flushing hydrants in town. We had a couple water main breaks at the middle school, one of which wasn't found until days later and had flooded a crawl space. Both of them have been repaired, and there's still repair going on, but they've been repaired. Water has been restored to the middle school, but it's just one of those things that just happen, just like our home. So Brian Koss and his team have been working extremely hard and will throughout the summer. But it was a successful school year, and thanks to all the employees that had a hand in that. We are coming to a close on our hiring process. We have a few new members of the family that will be introduced here shortly. We still, to my knowledge, I think are going to have 2 more positions still to fill. So a long-term sub position, a 3/4 position within the district as well. So we're coming to a close. We're in a great spot. We have been able to find outstanding candidates to join the BBH family, and we've been very positive with that. Kindergarten enrollment, just that thing I add here every once in a while, we are at 233. So we are actually 2 students less than last year at this point in time. So I'm sure we still, as we traditionally do, we will have late enrollees that will come later in the summer, but we should be right about where we had planned to be and are staffed appropriately. We'll have 2 half-day sessions, I believe, that are offered, and the rest are all full day. So it's 200 right now signed up for full day, 33 signed up for half day.
How many sections of the kindergarten full day?
10, 12.
Okay, thank you.
So class size numbers are trending very well. The state budget status and ramifications, I don't know, I'll let my friend Craig here talk about some of that as he goes through some of his information. We're trying to not get too discouraged or too excited as the news continues to roll out over the next couple of days. Obviously, public funding of public schools is not the top priority, I guess, at times, but it's an allocation of resources that we talk about so often. There is the question of, our fair school funding plan was deemed unsustainable. However, private school vouchers are continuing to get funding at a level that would more than take care of the fair school funding plan. So obviously, as public educators, we want to advocate as much as we can for adequate funding, and we will continue to do so. I know Craig and I both have been very active. There's a couple House bills that are floating around right now. House Bill 335, which is alarming to say the least. It has to do with inside millage and the removal of inside millage. It would not only affect schools, it would affect municipalities, cities, and safety forces. So I'm hearing from our lobbyists that it doesn't have a whole lot of bipartisan support. However, it's still going to be considered, and it's something we're going to need to watch closely. In our district, that would be the elimination of $7.4 million, which is not sustainable whatsoever.
And you mean $7.4 million a year?
A year. Yep, which is not sustainable and would only force us back to our community to further support at the local level, as far as going to the ballot. So more to come on all of those. And right now, as Ellen indicated, the next couple of days are going to be crucial as things begin to roll out. Last thing, our community should be watching their news or their mailboxes. Our summer community newsletter will be hitting mailboxes probably end of next week or the week after. Final draft was done. It's been sent to the printer, who then the printer also then sends them out. So be watching your mailbox for the latest version of the community newsletter. That's all I got.
I just wanted to add that the Ohio Ed Choice private school voucher program was ruled unconstitutional yesterday. And Brecksville Broadview Heights is among the hundreds of schools that had joined the suit, which I think is an excellent first step. Of course, it's going to be appealed. It's going to be a slog, but I was very happy to see that result. And thank you for the support. Also, school board, state school board has been slashed to 5 members appointed by the governor.
They don't have much power anymore.
Nothing,
They don't have much decision-making process either.
right?
So, but yeah, it's down to 5 members, all appointed.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item 5, treasurer's communications. I'll turn it over to Craig.
Okay. Looks like this computer's been running a little slow today. Maybe it's too hot.
Mm.
So again, we do these reports. We are usually about a month behind. So this is the report for May, which talks about where we've been. This kind of gives us a little bit of a recap about where our finances and our revenue streams are, of our real estate taxes, which you can see are over $40 million. Personal tangibles really are, as I talked about before, it's what we call the PUP, the personal utility property tax that we get. Other revenues, $8.9 million, unrestricted grants, $4.7 million. So just a quick recap of those. When we look at our expense management, the red is the expenses this year that we had in the current fiscal year for the month of May. In blue was last year's expense in the month of May. So it does show slight amount of increases, but it was nothing that was not anticipated at that point in time. Salary and benefits were trending on par. Purchase services did see an increase, but again, in terms of the total year of what we planned in the forecast, we were running true to form on the expense side. Cash balance projections are continuing to go down, even more so after the news we had from yesterday or today. But we are deficit spending this year, and that will happen. Our ending cash balance will be less. Our true days cash has decreased and will continue to decrease as well. So this kind of shows, also I've talked about how our cash balance trends throughout the year. So you can see when those local taxes come in, where you see the 2 spikes, and then you see how low we get in the months of January, I guess, was our lowest point that we have, which is very common. Again, with lower cash balances, this low here is next year going to be way down here. So it will all trend probably somewhat similarly in what this graph looks like, but it will be significantly less and much lower on this same bar chart for next year. On the revenue side, 99.8% on target for revenue, 97.2%. That's a good thing because we were trending under expenses on the expense side of things. And then we, again, 171 days of cash, which again will be altered based off of the transfers that you'll see later on proposed in the meeting. The total amount of money we brought in for the month of May was a little over $3 million. And then we spent $4.6 million in the month of May. So 2.6 million in salaries, 1.1 million in benefits, 600,000 almost in purchase services, 241,000 in supplies. And the last part is, this is just the same graphs that we see. So you can see that we did actually receive one of the other nice things that we got, thanks to Cassie. I don't ever get to thank Cassie in these meetings, but when I say the state funding was slightly more, this will actually show up on the June one, sorry. In the June revenues, we normally get about $400,000 in catastrophic or threshold cost reimbursement from the state. And in the month of June, we received over $600,000. So you might think that's great, but as you've heard me talk about before, and is that a lot of the needs of our special education students are so great, and some of them cost so much money that we get this reimbursement. It's just at a percentage. So if you imagine, they said the average school received, what was it, 36 or 37% this year, I think, of the total amount we submitted. So we obviously submitted much more than $600,000 worth of expenses, and we received 36 or 37% back. But that was an unanticipated, which you'll see for June, of about $200,000 in additional revenue, which posted. But we also did good this year as well in other revenue, in the revenue side. Again, the expenses, salaries were essentially the same as last year, while benefit costs were about $90,000 more. And that's where we are from last year to this year. Green is last year's revenues. Blue is this year's revenues, almost identical, a little bit less this year overall, but that'll again change next month with that extra $200,000 bump. And then on the expense side, you can see that we obviously spent more money this year at the same time from July to current. Orange is last year at 49 million, and this year we're sitting at 51.4 million. Any questions on where we are through May?
Can you just explain how that this proposed cash carryover cap, like how that affects our district's budget and then ultimately a levy cycle?
Sure. I mean, we talked about this before. The proposal was from the House at 30%, that they would cap us at 30% of the prior year expenditures. And the Senate said 50%. So we thought we'd be good because we're under 50%. Now, we also talked about there are some schools that are over 100% of cash funding, which I think is what has drawn the target, of school districts. The other thing that was unfortunate is that the state legislature doesn't understand how school finance works, in that they were originally doing and constructing this proposal because of some of the balances that they saw from fiscal 24, which for some schools still had significant dollars that were allocated from ESSER. So they were looking at inflated dollars. The data suggests and showed that cash balances for schools in the state of Ohio, which yes, are at an all-time high due to ESSER dollars at over $10 billion when you combine all of the public schools together, within 2 to 3 years was down around $5 billion from all schools. So you can see how drastically that number was decreasing. And even with that information, they came back and said, okay, the Senate says 50%. And we just found out I found out this morning a little bit later, but at 1 o'clock in the morning, they announced that the conference committee has settled on 40%. And then we still have options at this point, whether the governor would potentially line item veto that provision. And then the legislature could override him if they would like to do that. So what that ultimately forces schools to do, if you carry less cash balances than 50%, which by the way, if you're below 50%, you will get a lower rating from Moody's, which means when you go out for any type of bond, you will be rated differently and pay higher interest rates, which means the community pays higher interest rates with any of those types of borrowing activities. And so they're capping schools at 40%. When schools are capped at 40%, their cash balances are lower, which is going to then also force them to stay under that threshold in the event that they do a levy cycle. So schools are going to have to spend down and then constantly be going back to the ballot much more frequently, with less options, by the way, because they've taken away the different various levy options that school districts have. We have traditionally, at least here, currently have current expenses, which is what they want people to do. But it would require school districts to go out maybe for smaller amounts of levies, obviously, because you don't want the spike to go above, because then you'll just lose that money. So it'll be more frequent and probably smaller is what they are anticipating. And that would be the ultimate effect on us as well. So as we mentioned, I think at the last meeting too, this will ultimately probably push us out probably a year or two on when we would go out. But we're going to get to the point where we're going to have such low cash balances that it's going to be difficult to negotiate our contracts with our unions that we have next round. And it's also going to be difficult to look at our interest earnings, which we're making really good money on currently. This year, we're at like over $1.5 million of investments and interest earnings that we've made. So all of those numbers will dramatically start to decrease as our cash balances decrease.
So I don't see any like positive. It doesn't sound like there's any positive.
No, not really. Not really.
Are we still interested in gathering community members for informational meetings? I know that we were talking initially about that. I don't know if it would serve any purpose at this point anyway, but just asking.
No, I've communicated with both mayors. Craig and I both sent a communication to them on what the impact of some of this legislation is on our district, because obviously they're going to then be the next line that's going to get the pushback from the community when we end up having to go out more often for levies, and why we're doing that. So we're continuing to make sure that our elected officials understand the ramifications of it and what the impact can be. But as far as rallying any other community support, we haven't at this point. I mean, there's not much to do with it.
There's not, right.
No.
I mean, we're a handful of days away from finding out what the final decision is. After that, we can regroup and and see if what they pass, if it has a dramatic impact on our district, as well as I'm sure districts across the state. That might be time to inform community members on.
A few weeks ago, I met with Representative Robinson, who represents our area on the Democratic side, and with four other superintendents. And he was kind of walking us through this process. It was just as it was getting ready to go in the conference committee. And he shared kind of some of the behind the curtain of how things are going to work and how they're going to transpire, and kind of what he predicted that meeting is coming to fruition here now as things are being released. He was hopeful that it would stay at 50%, but he also wasn't very optimistic. So
I just think it would give us a better chance in terms of any kind of levy proposals to at least educate our public, because no matter how many times we gather a group together and begin to discuss school finance, there's always shock and awe because nobody had any idea.
yeah, you'll see. I don't know if it'll be next month or it'll be August for sure. I'll come to you with our communication plan for next year that will lay out the whole school year and the different ways that we'll be communicating with our community, from coffee chats to key communicators meetings to state of the schools to various different surveys that we're going to send out. We're going to have that roadmap out so that people know when they can have an audience with Craig and I and other members of our administrative team, as well as opportunities for us to gather feedback from our community. So in the end, we don't want to be the district accused of not communicating with our community. We're going to be over communicating with our community. And when we have to talk about levies or bonds or support for our school district, we'll be referring to, the state budget, obviously, because it impacts us greatly.
The other thing too that you'll see hot off the presses in the newsletter, one of our strategic plan initiatives was to continue to talk to the community about finance in particular, because it's a difficult subject. So part of the strategic plan is that we're going to be forming a finance committee. It's not a decision-making body, so it's in the newsletter that's coming out, and we will have a larger group of finance committee people. That there will be an application process for our community to get involved, to get business leaders involved, our unions, some administrators and whatnot, to be a part of that group of people that we will come and talk about some of these issues together and hopefully have some good conversations, whether it's good or bad. So it doesn't mean that you have to always be a proponent of public education. It's a good place to at least learn about it and understand what that looks like. So that information will be coming out shortly to have applications for people to apply to be on it. I don't know. I say applications, but I might get 3 people. Maybe it'll be more, but also maybe involving city council or whatnot to be a part of those conversations.
That's
as well.
terrific.
So that'll be coming out in the next couple months.
Which I'm just, as a legislative liaison for the board, I had a dialogue with Representative Robinson, Representative Davila, and Senator Patton, all of whom I spoke with. I met with 2 of them. I met with all 3 actually during this process. I was told by our esteemed Senator Jerry Serino that he won't speak to board members. He only communicates with school district superintendents and treasurers. So I'm curious if he reached out to you at all.
He has not reached out, but Mayor Kingston has facilitated a meeting opportunity with him, yet to be determined on a date, but coming soon.
Okay.
So that was last week. I had a conversation with Mayor Kingston, and he indicated that he would work to secure a meeting with Craig and I and Senator.
Thanks.
No problem.
So, and we're going to find out, and by the end of the month is when the budget has to be finalized. So we're going to find out what they finally settle on. But for instance, as Craig mentioned, if they land on 40% as the threshold, they're not phasing it in, right? So they're changing the rule. If they land on this, they're changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game. So, where you have no chance as a district to react to that, all of a sudden we would just be thrown at, here's 40%. So if you look at our numbers, our expenses are around $50 million, 40% is $20 million. So if you have over $20 million in cash, you got to give it back or figure out, can you redirect it and start maybe doing some things in your district, like permanent improvement or things that, that need to be done. But again, what they're doing is that they're not phasing it in to let, at least right now, they're not phasing it in to let you react to it and plan for it. Instead, they're just putting it in and say, this is the law. And we'll see what comes of it. But I know it has a lot of districts across the state really trying to figure out how do we respond to this, because it doesn't give a phase-in runway so that you can address what you're doing with your finances.
I'll just make one last comment and then we can move on. But I think the most disappointing part of this, as well, many pieces of it, is it's removing local control. So many pieces of this, as well as policy updates we've had to make this year, has removed local control. Like, I just don't get it. Like Mark says, we have to give that money back to the very people who voted to approve to give it to us in the first place, who have then allowed us to extend our levy cycle so that we're not coming back every 2 or 3 years, wasting time, energy, and resources doing so. And but so now they're just removing that local control. I mean, pretty soon it's like, then why do we have boards of education and other local control entities? So that's the disappointing part, is you talk about wanting us to have local control as a school board, and your initiatives or legislation is going to place that removes a lot of that local control.
Okay, more to come.
More to come. And then lastly, just as normal, the annual spending plan is uploaded for people to look at, and the cash position report, which has all of our funds that we have in the district and their balances.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to move on to item 6, community communications. Is there anyone in the room that wants to speak? No? Okay, so I'll dispense with the reading of that narrative, and we'll move on to item 7, a consent agenda. Item A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. Item D, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 handbooks as attached. Item E, resolve to approve the check register and bank reconciliation for May 2025 as attached. Item F, resolve to accept donations as presented. Item G, resolve to approve the minutes from the May 28th, 2025 regular board meeting and the revised minutes from the April 14th, 2025 special board meeting as attached. Item H, resolve to approve superintendent's consent items A through G. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll start with the certified recommendations. Bring those up, ask Greg to bring those up. As I mentioned earlier, we are approaching the end of the hiring process and filling all the open positions that we have from the many retirements that we had. We do have an additional retirement on here. Mr. Kevin Good, business teacher at the high school, will be retiring effective 7/20. He was one of the staff members that was affected by the change in the date. So we thank Mr. Good for the many, many years of service to our school district and has left a lasting impact. It will be a tough one to replace. We have some contract revisions on here, some job share situations, a voluntary reduction, and then just a correction to a previously approved contract that we had to make. Recommendations on here. I want to speak to the first one a little bit. You'll notice Jason Black is on here as an assistant principal. For those that don't know, Jason Black is a intervention specialist in our district, as well as our head football coach, but has aspirations of being an athletic director someday, and already has a master's degree and would like to obtain his administrative license. The state allows an alternative path to do so, but to be eligible for that alternative path, you need a school district to hire you as an administrator. So Jason's actually going to have a split job. He will be part-time administrator, part-time teacher. That may sound familiar to some people on the board, Ava, doing both roles. This is a cost-neutral move by the district. This is providing an opportunity for Jason to further his education and his expertise. He is a great employee for us and does a lot. So we are doing this as a year-to-year situation. It is cost-neutral, as I said, and he is exempted or does not qualify for some of the administrative guideline items that other administrators are. So he will be assisting at both the middle school and the high school getting those experiences. It's a year-to-year. It will probably last 2 years if he's successful in completing it, I believe. So that is Jason. We have a couple new hires on here, so I will turn it over to Ms. McCauley if she would like to introduce the new hires that are in the room with us tonight.
So the first one that I get to introduce is Amanda Chackey. She's our second grade long-term sub. Amanda joins us from Garfield Heights City Schools, bringing a strong background in data analysis and PLC work, along with a wealth of leadership experience. Her former principal shared that Amanda's departure will leave a significant void but she is confident Amanda will be a tremendous asset to our team. Amanda is enthusiastic about joining the BBH primary and has already begun making connections with her new colleagues. Our next teacher is Serena Denoto, our new art teacher at the elementary school. She joins us from Parma City School District. When we spoke to her references, they couldn't say enough positive things about her, realizing they were losing an amazing teacher in person. The lesson we had the pleasure of observing was truly engaging. It was as if she had been with the students all year, a natural educator. We are especially thrilled to have Serena because of her proven ability to lead new initiatives in Parma, even doing so without an everyday art room. I believe it was art on the cart for her. We are eagerly anticipating how Serena will help us continue to build and grow our amazing art. And our last new hire is Brittany Pratt, our new PE teacher at the elementary school. She joins us from Westwood City Schools, where she's a valuable member of their PE team and has been co-teaching as a PE teacher. During her lesson, bless her little heart and the beekeeper students, it was during that 100-degree day on Monday. She brought energy, flexibility, and positivity, and we were outside because of the last-minute change of no field house. She adapted seamlessly, built instant connections with our students. Her upbeat mindset and student-centered approach will be wonderful additions. Welcome.
So, and there's one other new hire on here that wasn't able to join us tonight, and that's a new physical education teacher at the middle school, Noah Tama. He's student taught with us, so that's usually the toughest interview because he's there for the whole semester. All of these new hires, as I've said many times before, and maybe I'm embarrassed to say this, but I want to say it anyway. There's many times I meet with these new hires, I leave going, I'm glad I'm not interviewing for a teaching job because I don't know if I get hired. With the quality of candidates that we have time in and time out again, just impressed with their passion and wanting to join Brecksville Broadview Heights City Schools, as we all know it, as a destination district. And these individuals believe that they are here to stay. And we welcome them here shortly, as soon as we make things official. So with that, that's the class or certified side. Head on over to the classified side. Here we have a lot of our help for the summer with summer camp assistant, substitute positions to help, health aide, hiring of secretary at the middle school, as well as a bus driver. We celebrate anytime we can hire a bus driver. We have tech helpers that will be helping with many of the updating of devices and different technology projects throughout the summer, as well as custodial helpers as well. There is one resignation here I would like to point out. Kelly Petros is resigning. Kelly has been instrumental in our Power School implementation this year, but her last child graduated from high school this year, and I think she's ready to do other things. So we thank her for her service, and she's brought a lot to our district and made a very difficult situation this year with transitioning to a new SIS to be relatively smooth. Supplementals, this list is starting to grow. It's that time of the year where many of the supplementals are coming up for renewal. So please take a quick look at these, but these are many of our coaches and our advisors. Also on here, we're going to have our our department chairs at the high school, as well as our PLC leaders at the elementary. Again, these are all roles and responsibilities above and beyond their day-to-day teaching duties, as well as volunteer opportunities for some of our high school clubs at the bottom. Next, as you're looking at that, the next item on the agenda is the school handbooks. It's a yearly operational thing that we do. All three buildings did an outstanding job of getting their handbooks in a timely fashion and also providing a cheat sheet as to what changed, from formatting differences to changes in policy and or wording. They go above and beyond. The high school this year even had a Cliff Note version of some of the items that are easily understood by parents and students. So it was very nice of them to take that extra step to do that.
Then for your review is the check register. So you can see all of the checks we've written over the course of the month of May. And then the bank reconciliation is also available. Donations, we did receive a few donations that are here. One for Thespian Theater Program, the girls basketball team, and Nimbo Posterior Walker.
want to speak to that first donation. If you recall, I shared with the board that Julie Billiart Schools had a double booking for their graduation at the Holiday Inn, I think in Rockside. So they called us literally within 24 hours of their graduation, and we were able to pull it off, and they used our auditorium. And Ben Lesh went above and beyond to make sure that it was a great event, and we were great hosts. And they showed their appreciation to Ben individually by giving him a gift card. Not something necessarily we can accept, so he accepted it on behalf of the student group, and it'll be used to pay for some expenses of student activities. So we were happy to help. We were able to do it. There was no other booking in our auditorium, and I have a feeling they'll probably be looking to rent an auditorium for years to come for the graduation.
The minutes are here. So the minutes for last meeting, as well as we revised. I'm putting forth a revision for the April 14th meeting. That was our special meeting, which was our permanent improvement and campus master plan update that we provided to the board. It just has a lot more detail on it in terms of the discussion items that we had, because it's obviously an important topic. So those are revised.
Any comments or questions?
I just wanted to say welcome to all the new hires. And then I did want to make a special shout out to Mr. Good, who was a very well-liked, very respected educator. 2 of my kids had him and loved him. So he will be greatly missed.
Absolutely.
He's a friend of mine, so happy retirement, Kevin.
And I had him for 4 years in homeroom.
Oh,
And I'm
Sarah's
going
ready
now.
for him.
Maybe you can join you on your hikes now, Mark.
There you go. All right, any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 3-0. Why don't we take a brief pause, and maybe if our new hires could come up, we can congratulate you. And if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, wonderful. And if you wanted to exit, we wouldn't be.
That's right. Congratulations.
To it.
But that was my part of the alphabet.
All right, we're going to move on to item 8, superintendent's recommendations. Item A, resolve to approve the high school chemistry adoption as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a little clause to this one, and I'll let Dr. Martin come up and maybe talk about the adoption, but we are seeking approval for this, but we will be holding on the purchase because of SB 29 that we've talked about many times this year, and needing a DPA from the company, and we have not been able to secure it yet. We anticipate being able to. So instead of continuing to put this off until we get the DPA, we seek approval, but we will not be moving forward with the purchase until we get that DPA. Dr. Martin, would you like to share anything else about this chemistry adoption?
Cliff notes.
That's, there are one thing to understand Ohio laws, SB 29. But active chemistry it's a bit of a, it has substantive access to digital textbooks. What I really like about it, it has an interactive feature where teachers can provide multi-step problems, provide on-time feedback, corrected and scripted feedback to students. So they can really work out chemistry problems. And we did our due diligence, and the kids, we even polled the kids, 150 or so kids that we polled, and they were very, what they also found equation. They were very into this because they felt that you can get on that. Hopefully it'll work out. And it's only been 3 months.
Mhm.
So I'm a very patient man. So it will hopefully.
And as he has in the past, there's those talking points that are attached to the agenda that describes the process. So thanks, Dr. Martin.
And DPA,
Data privacy agreement.
thanks.
Yep.
So-
A lot about that, people.
So a Canadian product, are there tariffs on this thing? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes,
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Moving on to item C, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 Jefferson County ESC agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
This agreement is new for us this year, Jefferson County ESE agreement. It's for digital learning for students who are not able to attend on campus for various reasons. The ESC of Northeast Ohio used to have a program. They no longer have it. So we've moved to Jefferson County for this program at a cheaper rate.
Comments or questions?
Yeah, how many students used, and I realize we don't know who's going to use this program that we may be approving in a few minutes. How many students participated in digital learning this past school year?
5 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very small number. But we have to have this option. There are issues that we. This ability.
It's nice to have my bullpen here to be able to answer this.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
yes,
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Moving on to item E, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 STEPS Educational Group Service Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
This item, as well as the next several, are dealing with many of our students with special needs that are outplaced and or are getting services. This is a continuation typically of these services into next school year.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
yes,
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Moving on to item G. Resolve to approve the 2025-2026 Cleveland Clinic Learner School for Autism Agreements as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
As stated, it's a continuation.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
yes,
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Moving on to item I. Resolve to approve the 2025-2026 United Cerebral Palsy Association agreements as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
Comments or questions?
No.
Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
yes,
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item K, resolve to approve the Sendero Therapies agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
Just a quick shout out to Mrs. Spangler and her team. They put this out for bid for multiple companies. Sendero has been a partner in the past. They were able to make sure that we were getting the best price possible and the continuation of services for our students. So, but it took considerable amount of time and legwork. So we thank them for that.
thank you. Thank you,
Comments or
Kathy.
questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes,
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item M, resolve to approve the 2024-2025 ABA Outreach Services Agreement as attached. Should that say 2025 to 2026?
It does say that on.
I see the agreement is for 2025, 2026, but the verbiage.
Oh, yes. Are you making that?
And the recommended action.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay, item M, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 ABA Outreach Services Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
This is continuation of behavioral services.
We
Second.
need a second.
I'm sorry.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item O, resolve to approve the BBH High School AP Biology OSU Franz Theodore Stone Lab Trip proposal as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Awesome experience for AP Bio kids and on South Bass Island. It'll be towards the end of September. Done this trip for many years now.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item Q, resolve to approve BBH High School OHSAA State Track and Field Trip proposal as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's a retroactive approval. Many times we don't know if we're qualifying or not. This was for the track and field teams and our participants that participated.
And we had some state placers, right?
We did. I don't have them all off the top of my head tonight, though, but yes.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yeah.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item S, resolve to approve non-resident tuition paying student for the 2025-2026 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
As many know, we do not have open enrollment in our district. So if you're a non-resident, you can pay tuition. The tuition rate is set by the state each year. And this year's amount is 14,000 and some change. This is a student who will be coming to us, a high school student, actually a senior. So we don't really have class size limitations at the high school. So it doesn't put us in a position that way. This is a family that is building a home in North Royalton and would like their son to finish his high school career, Brexville Broadview Heights.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Moving on to item 9, treasurer's recommendations. Item A, resolve to approve the final FY25 budget adjustments to expenditures and revenues, and for the treasurer to update the appropriations and certificate of estimated resources with the county auditor's office as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So you'll see the different budget modifications here, both to revenues and expenditures. This basically balances out all of our budgets to zero with the exception of grants because those dollars are encumbered. So we have, this was like where we started off the year in terms of estimated resources. This is the newest amendment. And then these are the changes that are proposed through that process. So there's budgets for both revenues. This is on the expense side. We started off last June in 55.9 million, and we are finishing at 64 million. Much of that is to the transfers that we'll be approving later, hopefully. And those are the adjustments that we have that we're basically updating all of this with the county auditor to certify that we have a do not exceeds certificate, that we're not spending more money than we are expected to receive, obviously, or have money for.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item C, resolve to approve the FY 26 appropriations and certificate of estimated resources to be filed with the county auditor's office as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
So this is basically what gets us started and off and running so that we can actually spend money in fiscal 26, which will be here next Tuesday. Coming up very quickly. So there's the appropriations and of course the estimated resources of where we would start off the year that are here. And then we'll do some budget modifications as we go out throughout the next year. So this is what gets us started.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Item passes 3-0. Item E, resolve to approve the property casualty liability and crime insurance offered by SORSA and the cyber policy offered by Tokyo Marine, all with a policy effective period from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026 as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
So this is the insurance policy for the district. These are always in 1-year increments. I've listed, let me back out here for a second. With some of these, I couldn't shrink this for some reason, but these are the individual breakdowns for what the premium costs are for property, general liability. This particular company or group that we're working with, which is a pooled collateral system called SORSA, they have a board of treasurers and superintendents that help compile this. It's very similar to the policy that we had, but this is a change of provider for us. It does include additional coverages for the district than what we had before. Not significantly, but it's better coverage for us in terms of our insurance policies in these various areas. You'll see here that the cyber is declined. We are declining our cyber policy to be covered with SORSA, and we are instead choosing a cyber policy with Tokyo Marine. They gave us a very competitive quote for essentially $3 million of coverage in case something happens, ransomware, social, what they call it, social engineering. All of those things are included. It's a good coverage policy. We last year had our cyber policy at $1 million. This is a $3 million policy, as we've talked about before. Cyber is continuing to be a problem, especially for school districts. We have done more than probably some of our other neighboring districts and colleagues out there in terms of protecting ourselves from cyber. But in the event something happens, I think it's best to have a robust policy that can cover us in the event that happens. I'm sure some of you are familiar with what happened at Orange. That was a social engineering attack. And that district only ended up, I think, I wouldn't say it was like $100,000. So they lost $500,000, I believe, because the total claim was $619,000. So the nice thing about this too is that you'll see it's $234,543. Cyber policy is going to be a little over $10,000. We're still working out those final details with this policy because there's a couple small fees that are like $500 or whatnot to administer the policy. The total of that is only going to be a $2,000 increase over what we paid last year, which is tremendous. The re-quote from the company that we did, and thanks, Rachel, she really loves doing all of these applications. So the Ohio School Plan is who we had. We would have been paying close to $280,000 for a little bit less coverage. Good policy, but a little bit less coverage, and we would have seen a substantial increase. Last year, we paid about $244,000, $244,000 for all of this coverage. So we're getting better coverage, a better cyber policy for essentially a very, very small increase, which we're happy about. But we don't want any claims, though, by the way, period.
no.
Just out of curiosity for that cyber coverage, do they mandate certain kinds of training or protocols to be followed to mitigate risk?
So they do. The cyber applications have been very detailed and they continue to get more difficult to do every single year. So they started off with MFA a couple of years ago. Now they're asking very invasive questions as to what do you have in place and all of that stuff. I believe we've been getting better rates because of some of those other coverages that we've, I shouldn't say coverages, those other programs that we have, because we're actively monitoring our emails through an AI driven type of process called abnormal security to help protect things that are before they hit the inboxes. And then we also have disaster recovery. We have an EDR and an MDR, which is that basically our network is monitored. Could we do more? Yes, but it's extremely expensive. to do. We're spending about $50,000 to $60,000 a year right now on that extra coverages. If we go the next step, we're going to be closer to $100,000 a year in cyber coverages and additional programs to help protect us. So we're doing, I think, a good amount for now. But they ask us those questions. So because we have disaster recovery, because we have an EDR, those help us keep our rates down for these pieces. Because sometimes they'll say we won't give you $3 million, or you can only get $500,000 because you don't have these things in place.
Sure.
So yeah. Any other questions?
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 3-0.
Oopsies, gotta go back down.
Item G, resolve to approve the pay to participate fees for the 2025-2026 school year as attached. Can you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So you will see the pay to participate fees here for your review. Also, thanks to Rachel. She loved doing this as well. We also are tracking for what we've been talking about in terms of where the caps are. So you can see that we do have caps in place at the high school at $500 per student and $300 per student at the middle school. This is the effect of that. So middle school and high school, you can see how much of those dollars that ideally, or I shouldn't say ideally, but the district is picking up the additional once the students have hit their max in pay to participate fees. So you see that number is growing, which we kind of anticipated, but that is the effect. You will also see, so there was no changes other than we kept the same parameters we've kept the last couple of years, keeping in mind that this year, when we take the 3-year average, we have now dropped off the COVID year. So 21-22 was in last year's calculation. It is now no longer in there, which there were some modifications, obviously, as those continue to be tracked through the averages. And then we've also kept any increases or decreases still capped at 25%. We still have there's a couple outliers where they're still making some adjustments from how it was being tracked before. Probably like 1 or 2 items that are still being hit every single year by 25%, just because they were so incorrectly priced in the past. So the last piece of this on the high school side of this is clubs, I think, sorry. On the high school athletics, we met as a larger group to get some additional input on this, and you see a much smaller list. So we, a couple years ago, made sure that we got rid of that, even though it was real data, that boys were paying more, girls were paying more. So that was all equalized a couple of years ago. And now we've condensed so that we no longer have different prices for JV, freshman teams, et cetera. It's all one price per sport. And in many cases, it has been helpful. You will actually see that there is only one sport, which is basketball, that actually hits the cap now. So we've had some overall decreases in terms of the number of sports that are truly hitting the cap. So in some cases, that's actually a good thing. And I will also draw your attention to the fact that we have not had honeybees, which apparently is a dance team. I did not know that because we've not had it since I've been here. So I was told that we are hiring a dance or a honeybees advisor. This is a little bit, so this is not as data driven. When I talked with Mark Maslona, this is the cost of the supplemental, which is $2,518 for next year. They believe there's about 8 kids. We're taking a shot in the dark, and we'll go from there. So they will have a pay to participate fee of $157, and we will start to track them, of course, and then next year we'll do the average and all that good stuff. So, but that is a new fee that's been added to the schedule because we've not had it. And apparently there was a request and a demand for it.
It's a little bit more equitable because, you know, you have programs that have a freshman, JV, and varsity. Where does the kids get slotted? And then a kid gets promoted per se from JV to varsity or freshman to JV. So this is streamlining it a little bit, making it a little bit more fair across the board.
I know when you came on board, that was one of the goals that you had set for our district. So I'm really pleased to see that it's so much more equitable.
It is. And then the differences between the boys and girls sports was something we had to address, which we did years ago now.
And can you just clarify the reason for the increase year over year? You mentioned it, but I didn't quite. I'm sorry, on the total.
Oh, just because, so
31.
last year, same thing, we've had increase in transportation costs. The cap has not moved. So when we're having more kids hitting the cap under what we had last year. So you got increased costs for supplementals every single year. So a lot of those sports were edging up towards the top part of the cap. So we have just more kids that are going to continually do that unless the cap moves. Because every year, basically everything's getting more expensive. So those averages have continued to increase.
So just a refresher too. During the Great Recession, our district, we had 3 operating levies fail in a row. And as an outgrowth of that, we had 100% pay to participate. So that was coaches and transportation costs was 100%, as well as we lost high school busing and we lost some programs and whatnot. When the board brought that back, we wanted to bring it back in a way that was equitable, but we still realized that families were going to need to make some type of contribution. So when it was brought back at 50% pay to participate, but then caps were put in place so that families with multiple students or multiple being involved in multiple activities, there was some relief there. And so what you're seeing from those totals is that we haven't adjusted at all the caps, so the caps stayed in place. So as costs keep going up, the board contribution for participation in these extracurriculars has been going up year over year. So while I can appreciate for a lot of families that pay to participate is a pain point, recognizes that the board is also stepping up and making a greater contribution for these activities year after year. We haven't gone back and in essence escalated the caps. So that's kind of some backstory. So while I know it is a pain point for many families, just recognize, the board is trying to cover and is covering a greater share year after year.
Yeah, and I think what we've tried to do as well is make sure you can see that and track the data now with real data that we're using, as well as showing it here to show what is the average enrollment that we're dealing with, what is the average cost of that 3-year average of salaries and transportation, dividing it. Hopefully this is somewhat simple math for people to understand, because it I think wasn't as clear before, even though it was talked about. This hopefully people can tie the math out to this to see how we've come up with these numbers. That it does change every year, but
it's been said 3 times, but it's coaches and transportation.
Correct.
It's not officials, it's not balls, it's not uniforms, it's not everything else that goes into athletics.
Right.
This is when we talk pay to participate, coaching and transportation.
And
Correct.
for what it's worth, there was honeybees when I went to high school here. So see, everything comes.
It all comes back.
It just comes.
And they were really exciting.
Well, they said to me originally that I asked Mark, he said it's been just a couple of years. Like I went back. So it's before I got here is the last time we had it, which was then at least before COVID. But now I'm almost curious enough to go back and really look to see how long it's been.
My dearest friend, Jan Whittick, began that whole program.
Oh, wow.
And it was really wonderful. It gave some kids a real opportunity to perform on a different level.
Yeah. They are back.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item I, resolve to approve fund-to-fund transfers as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So these are the final transfers. We're doing some of those transfers that we normally do in July. We're going to do them in June. So you'll see the list here. It's a total of $8 million. And those are the different reasons why they're here. So we have a negative fund balance in athletics. We also have our Kappa annual contribution, our annual contribution to the Blossom Fieldhouse. We know that we are replacing the turf after next playing season, which is a very expensive endeavor. So we are making that transfer early as well. Campus master plan and termination benefits. Termination benefits is basically a place where we transfer money to help pay for the severances, which, as we know, these last couple of years have been extremely expensive. So it's that's where we do those transfers from. So that is the final transfers for your approval.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 3-0. Item 10, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for July 16th at 6 p.m. Item B, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, meeting is now adjourned. Stay cool, everyone, and happy summer.